Hi, my name is Ollie Ingram, and for the video presentation, I'm going to be talking about the importance of persuasion in presentations. So, as you can see, I have three key points listed off. I have audience, choice of words, and be convincing. There are a ton of different topics I could talk about, but I thought these three were the most important ones when creating a persuasive speech. I thought of these three through the entire semester of lectures, of attending the labs, of taking notes in the lectures, and outside research as well. But the most important way of reflecting that I did was after my first presentation of the year, which was a persuasive speech to get people from stop watching NASCAR and starting to watch Formula One. And I realized reflecting on what I could have done better in that would make it a lot better of a persuasive presentation. So the first one, audience. Listed down, I have connect through many different ways, and then I have either emotionally, deeply, or thoughtfully. So when you're presenting to an audience, you want to be able to know your audience. You want to be able to connect with them so they can really listen to what you have to say. If you know your audience is maybe younger, then you may want to speak in simpler terms and use words that are easier for them to understand. If you're speaking to an older audience or people that you know of, use ways to find a personal connection with them, and then you can really start to understand who you're talking to and make it much more persuasive. Just as I have listed there, thoughtfully. If you're thoughtfully understanding your audience and you're thoughtfully speaking to them, then they're more likely they are going to be able to listen to what you have to say. The next one, choice of words. I have listed down strategic, how others perceive you, choose carefully, use commanding words to get your point across. So strategic. When you're presenting, whether it's not just a persuasive speech or any other type of presentation, you want to be able to use strong words and when to use them and when not to use them. If you're going to be speaking in detail, make sure you're using strong words that can get the audience engaged. And when you're just summarizing, you want to be able to use words that everyone can understand without having to really think. Nextly, how others will perceive you. This is kind of related to audience as well, but when you're up there, you want to be able to speak in a way where some audiences may perceive you one way and some audiences may perceive you a different way. If you're with a certain audience, then you want to be able to choose a list in a set of words that they will realize that, oh, you know what you're talking about, you're knowledgeable in what you're speaking about, and then you'll be able to become a lot more persuasive. And then if you're speaking to an audience that you may not know, that's a fresh new audience that no one knows, you want to use words at certain times of your presentation to really get them engaged. Next is choose carefully. So this kind of ties into what I said earlier when speaking about choice of words. But you want to choose your words very carefully. You don't want to use some words for the wrong audience. You don't want to use some words for a different audience. You always want to be able to understand what you're saying and who you're saying it to. And so when you choose your words that you're going to speak in your presentation, you have to take that into very careful consideration. And then finally, use commanding words to get your point across. If I'm up here trying to give a persuasive speech to people, I want to use words that will really engage the audience, words that you may not hear a lot. Because if you're using words that really gets the audience engaged, there's way more of a chance they'll be able to understand what you're saying, follow on with each point you have when you're presenting, and as well as maybe even persuading them if they think differently. And then finally, be convincing, which I think is the most important part. I have written down, be passionate about your topic, engage the audience, you must know what you're talking about, and establish credentials. So, to begin, be passionate about your topic. For presentation one, as I mentioned earlier, I did a persuasive speech talking about why Formula One is a great sport to get into, as well as why it's better than NASCAR. As I said in the speech, I'm very passionate about Formula One. It's a hobby of mine to watch. I grew up watching it with my dad, and that's how I became passionate in it. Then, if I'm going to do a persuasive speech about it, I want to show the audience how much I care about this topic, because then they're more likely to listen to what you have to say, and you may persuade them to have the same mindset as you do. Next is engaging the audience. Throughout the labs and lectures this year, we really learned that getting the audience engaged in your presentation is very helpful. If you're just speaking to an audience and you can tell maybe they're not so engaged in what you have to say, maybe throw a question to them, maybe ask them, as I said earlier about the Formula One speech, have you ever watched Formula One? Therefore, if you ask these questions, they'll be engaged, they'll be like yes or no, and then if they say no, maybe they'll listen to more of what you have to say and you can persuade them. Thirdly, you must know what you're talking about, and this also lies into established credentials as well. If I'm just standing up here, trying to persuade you to like, I don't know, Stranger Things, a show I've only watched a season of, you're not really going to listen to me. You're not really going to have to understand or take me seriously because I've only watched one season and I don't know the full story or what goes on. Now, if I'm standing up here and I'm talking about college basketball or I'm talking about the Premier League, English football, that is something I find myself really excelling in and something I know a lot of knowledge about. So if I can, you have to choose a topic that you are really knowledgeable about, and then you can really be able to persuade your audience to listen to you and understand what you have to say. And establishing credentials is very important, especially at the beginning of your speech. If you start off your speech and not list anything about the topic that you know about before you get into your main key points, they may not think, oh, maybe this guy doesn't know too much about this, maybe he doesn't really understand what he's talking about. But if you go up there and say, if I'm doing a speech about college basketball, I can come up here and I can say, you should listen to me and what I have to say because I've played basketball my whole life. I have family members who have played college basketball. I had a dream of playing college basketball and I've been watching it my entire life and it's something I'm very passionate about. Then right away, the audience knows that I know what I'm talking about. They'll be able to trust me when I'm trying to persuade them and everything goes a lot smoother and it's a lot more of a helpful way to get the audience to understand what you're having to say. So if anyone has any questions, if they think I left anything out and what I think makes a great persuasive speech, feel free to let me know. Again, the 3 topics were audience, be convincing, and word choice. 3 very important topics, and I hope I covered it well. Thank you.